Hi everyone, my name is Vanessa Valuco and welcome to Personal Pans, conversations about belief, transformation, and all the weird things that we experience. Today's episode is with Erica Davis, writer, editor, tarot reader, and my new ADHD BFF. We have been following each other for a while on social media. I'm pretty sure because of our mutual friend Larissa. And I saw that they were gonna make an oracle deck out of some vintage Care Bears counting cards, and I thought I gotta talk to her. And it turns out we had so much more in common in terms of experiencing grief, grappling with ADHD, and just our experiences reading tarot for other people. This is a high energy episode, and I hope you enjoy it.
Oh gosh, for those of you who can't see us through the audio right now, we just found our people.
Yes.
Oh my God.
It's been a 20-minute chat of finding people.
Warm up.
It's a warm up, exactly. Yes.
This is the preamble. The green room.
Yes. Well, and that again too, getting back to ADHD, right? Like there is this. I feel like the only people I really can talk to who kind of understand me also have ADHD. Mm-hmm. It is, yes. There's no other way to explain the completely nonlinear way of thinking, right. The like off the wall ideas, all of that. Mm-hmm. So,
and when I'm talking to you and your mind wanders, it's not because I'm boring, it's because it triggered something in a good way, and you're halfway through planning what you're about to say. And I have a podcast for work, and I've noticed I talk very quickly. I'm sure caffeine has something to do with it, but I'm the audio editor for my podcast, in addition to being a co-host. And I've realized since I've gotten my ADHD diagnosis that ADHD-inattentive, formerly known as ADD, I guess is the actual way to say it. Mm-hmm. I already forgot what I was going to say.
Yes. ADHD for the win.
Yeah. Circling back, Erica, get there.
Yeah, I believe in you.
What was I saying?
Oh, don't ask me that.
Oh God. Okay, it was about ADHD, whatever. If your mind comes back to it, it's not an insult. It's like, no, there was something else I was going to say about it. I will come back to it.
That's fine. But what you were saying, this idea of like, if you say something and it inspires something in me, right? And if I talk about it, it's because you have inspired me.
Right.
So I'm making those
mental notes.
Pathways. Exactly. And it's like,
yeah, I have a notepad right next to me because I'm jotting stuff down so I don't have to go on those tangents. I'll let future Erica handle it. Pardon me for interrupting you. The reason I speak so fast, this is what I was going to tell you. Yes. I've decoded since getting the diagnosis. I talk so fast because I'm constantly on the verge of about to forget what I'm going to say.
Yes.
Because the brain goes so quick.
That's exactly it. Yes.
Okay.
You found it. And this is, so there's a book called ADHD 2.0. And aside from TikTok, like that book really helped me.
Awesome.
Thinking about my brain in terms of ADHD. And one of the descriptions the doctors use is race car brain, bicycle brakes, right? And so like,
oh my God, that's so accurate.
Right? So like it's developing techniques to help slow you down and get focused and not get overwhelmed, right? Because on the days that I have a ton of energy, I can do everything, but it's also very easy for me to get completely overwhelmed because I'm thinking about more than just, okay, I'll do the laundry, I'll wash the dishes, I'll walk these packages to the post office. I'm suddenly thinking about like, okay, so I'm going to create a whole YouTube series about information literacy and then all this other kind of shit. And then it's just like, my brain just like,
oh my God.
And then whoop, power out. Like,
holy moly. For me, it's, we were just talking about this before we hit record that for like doing the dishes, it's difficult. Executive function disorder aside, doing the dishes is overwhelming to me. I have exhibit A. I have an old injury from a car accident, my lower back. So standing for longer than 3 minutes is uncomfortable. It's not painful anymore thanks to yoga and acupuncture and all that. But I have a pile of dirty dishes in the sink and on the counter. The dishwasher is still sitting there with 3-day-old clean dishes. Vanessa, your face right now.
Because I know it.
I know
my life. I'm like, oh,
but
my dishwasher.
Right. Sitting there with the full stuff. And I have to unload them, I have to make sure my shirt isn't dragging across the dirty water that's spilled onto the counter. And to do that, I have to change my shirt or clean up the counter, but I don't want to clean it up before I do the dishes. And now my dogs are tripping me, so I have to put them outside, but they won't go outside without a treat or having had lunch. Have I given them lunch? And then after like 30 minutes of trying to, it feels like 30 minutes. It's probably like 4 minutes of just doing this stuff to get myself organized. I need a mental break. I've used up my mental, physical battery, and I need a quick recharge. So that's refilling my water bottle, taking a sip, sitting down, or like stretching my back. And then the dishwasher is unloaded. The dishes are dirty in the sink, and I sort them next because I get overwhelmed otherwise, because like it's dishwasher dishes and then do them by hand dishes. I can load the dishwasher. I don't like doing it by hands. I have celiac disease. So if it's bread stuff, my husband handles it. And then I have to mentally look at each thing and find out, like mentally think like, was this? This is all what goes on in my head the minute I think about having to unload the dishwasher. And it's like this chicken and the egg thing. And the takeaway here is for my husband. I asked him recently, since the diagnosis of ADHD and attentive, is it this convoluted for you to unload the dishwasher too? He's like, no, I just unload the dishwasher. And I can't fathom that. My head's never been that simple. Like it's never been that quiet.
When I can't, it was probably on Twitter, because I'm on Twitter all the time, but it was some article that was going around about how people don't have a constant monologue in their heads.
How?
Literally how? I am always thinking of something.
More recently, to that effect, a writer asked a question during a Twitter chat for my day job. Hey guys, how do you give your characters voices? I'm like, what do you mean give them? Like, I didn't say it, but like they come to me full-fledged. And I do not have multiple personality disorder, but it's very clear. Like I hear these full-fledged characters in my head and I'm like, okay, just give me a second. Let me at least sit down at the computer. And then I can start typing out their dialogue or what their backstory is or whatever. It's already active in there. And it's like people walking in, uninvited guests coming into a reunion. Like
yes,
that's what it feels like. And it's just, the best writing sessions I have are when I let myself believe that I'm just the transcriber. I'm just the stenographer.
I mean, this sounds like channeling, right? That like essentially these characters are coming to you and they're just like, okay, so you're the scribe. You need to be the one that's going to record us for future. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And like for when I'm in a writing session, like in my early 20s, I figured that out. Like I tricked myself into letting my character, I'm like, okay, Greta, just tell me what to write. And that like subconsciously that gave me permission to get out of my way. But maybe it was something else like coming in and telling me what story it was. Who am I to know?
I mean, but either way, it's like, it's learning to work with your brain and how your brain works. Yeah. And again, this makes perfect sense to me because this is how it is with chainmail and other pieces.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It's very rarely sitting down, sketching, figuring things out. I get the flash of the idea and then it's figuring out how to translate that into three-dimensional form. Anything, any kind of creative project, it's just there. And the only issue is the technical aspect of it.
Oh God, you've no idea how affirming that is to hear. Like the other day I like maybe a week ago, I was streaming a video about how to make a box for one of the tarot decks. Oh yeah. And because the box that it came in doesn't feel right for me. Like it's like actually flimsy material or something. Oh, yeah. And I like them to be certain or whatever. And I'm looking around like just behind me. My sister calls it like a junk lady moment, like from Labyrinth, the junk heap lady Muppet. And it's an honor to be compared to her because, oh, don't you want your panda slippers? Like she's my favorite character. She's so good. And I want to be that when I grow up. Yes. But she's like, she's like, why don't you just, oh, you can just go to Michael's and get acrylic spray. And I'm like, that would require logging off, getting dressed, making the dogs a peanut butter mat. And I go through this she's like, okay, fine, forget it. Bad idea. But I'm like, why would I use it if I don't have it in my house already? Like, I'm only using resourcefulness like around me. Like, what do I have that I could use here instead? And so I used like my glossy and matte nail polish on top of it, just to like seal it and to see what that looked like, because I had my nail polish like UV light dryer thing. It worked. It wasn't perfect, and my husband ended up going to Lowe's and brought me back some acrylic spray a few days later, so that was good. I just still didn't have to leave the house because evidently I'm a recluse in training, and I'm okay with that. So, oh my God, right?
Yes.
No idea what I was saying, but it's like, I'm not going to go out of my way to get one thing that I need. And
right.
No, that's too much work.
Yes. So like this, I understand. And also I am the type of like my ADHD is hyper focused. So there will be these moments where I know exactly what I need and I don't have it. And I literally can't compromise with anything that's in the house. And so I will have to go seek the thing, either buy it on eBay, buy it on Etsy, because I know there's this exact specific thing. I have found it. It has to be this. I cannot do anything else.
There's a part where we differ, because I am the opposite. I'm like, okay, noted. I don't have that. What can I use instead? Let's pivot. I didn't have, I'm probably going to go get it in a minute, but like, I didn't have straps, webbing for a tote bag I made myself. So I used a tie that my husband hasn't worn in 5 years, the Dwight Schrute bag. It's perfect. It's like this tacky stripe thing. It's not that tacky. It's fine. It's just, he doesn't wear ties. I haven't seen that tie. I didn't know he had it. And I'm like, well, this looks like something Dwight would wear. And so the handles for this tote bag, amazing tote bag made out of 2 dish towels that I found and fell in love with.
Yes.
It's perfect. And so for me, it's like, okay, I can't have that. I don't have X. Let's try Y. Or just let me pivot. I am actually, that's by nature. I'm really good at adapting.
Yes.
And I think that comes from being, and I mean this with all the love in my heart for myself, very, very lazy. And you're laughing. Oh, I'm burping. Excuse me. You don't have to edit that. Please keep it in.
Right. We're keeping it real here.
This is how excited I am. Gastric anomalies. No, I am one of the laziest people in the world. And that is something that makes me infinitely creative. And I've only started embracing that. Lazy is not a 4-letter word. Like, I mean, see why it literally is, but right. Yeah. But it's not a swear word. Okay.
Exactly. Yes.
Right. It's not a swear word. It has such a negative connotation, like the word quit, like the word fail. Those are negative connotative words. These are not negative words. This just means, okay, checklist. This didn't work. Let's try the next thing. And I have no problem doing that. And like, I wanted to make that into a clutch that I had, this Dwight Schrute gift bag from Target. I wanted to make it into like a little wedding clutch, like super cute. How tacky would that be? Like, so funny.
Yes.
But but the material I found reminded me, I fell in love with the material, and that superseded the interest in the type of purse. And I'm like, okay, pivot to tote bag. Also, what do I use 90% of the time for purses? Tote bags. So I don't know what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all that to say, I forgot what I was saying.
Well, again, perfect. I love this. Like for ADHD conversations, just like, I'm going to tag out. It's your turn now. Because the pivoting like that, I think also, I consider myself very lazy also, and I work very hard, so I don't have to do that much work, if that makes sense. You know, like
what do you mean? No, what does that mean?
Like, I will put a lot of like front loading and thought into something so I can like execute something in the fewest amount of steps and have the most amount of free time.
I only recently started doing that to help future Erica. So you're helping future Vanessa.
Always. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Not always. And when I think about it, I'm like, okay, I'll do this now. And then future me is going to be fucking thrilled.
She'll be so happy. That's so amazing.
Happy. Yes. But again, it's also like understanding for me, it's about understanding energy levels and respecting energy levels, right? And again, not beating myself up. Like some days I can do everything. And then some days I can barely get out of bed. And so like understanding that, it's like, okay, so it was a TikTok that I saw that my friend Kelsey sent me. And it was, you know, if you have ADHD, you probably have like, you know, red light days, yellow light days, and green light days. And she was talking specifically about cultivating habits if you have ADHD, because again, if you're neurotypical, a habit and the rigidity of I'm going to do this type of workout every day, you know, or 5 days a week or whatever, that just doesn't work for me. I mean, part of it is the like dopamine shark brain. It's just like, I'm bored.
What do I get out of this? No.
Right. Exactly. No. If I'm bored, that is, I can't do anything. They're like I am so happy I have my job now, because there's always 100 different things to do. So if I get bored of something, I just switch and I switch and I switch and I switch. And
that's so good.
It's so great. It's just so like good. Dopamine factory, right?
Love that.
And
I really like that.
It just works for me. And anyway, getting back to this idea of like a red light day. So it's like, you want to start an exercise practice, right? If you're having a red light day, you might just get out of bed and like walk around your living room or something like that. And that's all you can manage.
Right.
And understanding that's just where your energy level is, fine. If you have a yellow light day, okay, go for a walk around the block. If you have a green light day, go run for a couple miles, you know, like it's honoring where you're at from day to day. So It's like finding a rhythm for it, as opposed to beating yourself up because you're not like going for a 5-mile run every day. Like
absolutely
not realistic.
No, in 2015 and 2017, I lost my mom and dad to cancer, respectively. Thank you. It's good now. For anyone who is anticipating going through this, the grief of loss of a very close loved one, you get through it. There's no option, and it's okay, and it sucks, and then you get through it, and it still sucks, and then I get through that, and baby steps, you know.
You just
that's all it is.
Yes.
But since my mom died, she was the second parent to pass. My honey badger levels have imploded. Like, I do not care anymore about being polite to men, service workers who come to my home and tell me to smile. I'm like, excuse me, why? What did you say that was funny? And it was in the middle of pandemic, and I have a mask on. This man was, who I have never met. It's like, oh, that was a joke. Why don't you laugh more? I'm like, I'm sorry. Can you just please explain to me the thing you're installing, and I can get back to my day job? Like, it was my mother coming out of my mouth. Like, I didn't have her energy. Like, she wasn't there anymore. So it's almost like I let it come through.
Yes.
And I'm like, wow, that felt good. No wonder she was kind of bitchy to people who did not respect her. And I'm like, it's just,
yes,
life is too short. And the part where I am privileged enough to differ from my parents is I saw them run themselves into the ground with multiple jobs to give me and my sister a really good life.
Yes.
They were miserable. They were cranky. And even then we just had just enough money to get by.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I refuse to do that. And that's a big reason of why we choose to not have children. That's why, like, we really do enjoy having financial stability. Yeah. And we enjoy spoiling our nieces and nephews and spoiling ourselves by actually getting a floor installed that we know is going to stand up to water and dog claws and all that, and not skimping on stuff. Like, that's very new for both me and my husband, but it's a privilege now that I can afford, because I've made my life choices. Like, I know I don't want children. It's more about my parents set an example for me. I think they thought they were setting the work hard and find the American dream example, and then you can provide for your family and all that. And I'm like, I want to just provide for me and my husband. And that's where it stopped. And I had to make that choice. And when my mom was still alive, like, she was getting mad at me for not having owned a house yet, for not having a stable job. I was doing all my side hustles. I had an Etsy store, sparked joy. I had an editing service. It sparked joy for a while. And then I would stop and stream out of it. Like, whatever that side hustle was, I am made for a gig economy. I am so much happier having a part-time job and a side hustle than I ever was in a full-time office job. I'm not wired that way. I'm not wired that way. And I remember saying like, oh, it'd be nice to work from home. And most of the people I was working with at that time were like, oh my God, no, you're not going to, you get so distracted at home. I was more productive in 3 hours at home than I ever was in 8 hours in an office.
Oh my God. Exactly.
I know.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's intentional choice. And I have to admit, I missed my parents, but it's so much easier to make these give a shit choices without having to justify it to them. And not that I had to, I'm a legal adult. I know that, but I was raised Catholic, and that did not stick, and that's okay.
Yes.
And that's totally okay, because I'm happy I get more out of a hike in nature than I ever did at church. Sorry, not sorry.
Oh my God. Yes.
Oh my God. Like,
yes, exactly.
And tap out.
Perfect. I love this. I love this. Yeah. So again, I lost my grandmother, my boyfriend, and my aunt in about 1.5 years.
Jesus, Vanessa, I'm so sorry.
Thank you. I mean, again, I feel like aside from the ADHD, I think people who grieve like understand each other, and are different from the rest of the population.
If you haven't been through it, you don't know.
Traumatic loss it fundamentally changes who you are as a person if you really feel it, because that's another thing too. Mm-hmm. Some people, they can experience a loss and then they just go immediately into denial and try to act like nothing happened, or it's fine, or go back to normal. It's like, no, you have to sit in it. It really sucks. You have to sit in it. That's the only way you can learn something from it. And I think you and I both learned the whole like, oh no, I don't give a shit anymore. All these things that you are trying to tell me, that society and family is trying to tell you, like, matter. None of that matters. Like, what matters? Is it joy? Again, what sparks joy? Right?
Joy. Yeah.
Because I also, again, let's talk about affirmation. I feel the same way, having a part-time job and a side hustle, or 3 side hustles, depending.
Right.
That is so much more productive for me and so much more interesting for me.
Yeah.
Because who cares about like, I need all this money for what? Like, ultimately for what? Like, having a stable income is like important for like keeping stress levels down.
Yes.
But what else? What am I chasing? Right? Do I want a big house that I barely spend time in because I'm working all the time? Mm-hmm. Like, I just feel like a lot of people. Go ahead.
No, do you want to finish that thought?
No, it's fine.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, you're tapping out. Okay, good.
Yeah.
I gotcha. Great. The best paying job I had, it was like the first time it was like a $40,000 a year job. I'm like, holy crap, that's more money than I've ever seen. It's probably more than my dad made at his job, like, or something like that. It was the most toxic place. I was sexually harassed. I was fat shamed. There was a murder in our parking lot, and my boss was like, yeah, you'll have that. And I was like, what? No, this was a college campus. And I walked to my car at 10 p.m. at night because classes end at 9:45. And I'm like, I can't do this. And I was in tears, resigning a week later after this murder in a parking lot. It had nothing to do with our school. It was just a neighboring apartment complex. A conflict came into the parking lot where I parked my car. Literally, it's not a big business park.
Sure.
And where I walked, there was crime scene tape where I parked the week before. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I come in, I'm like, did you see the crime scene tape? And the guy was like, yeah, you'll have that. And I knew right then he was one of the creepy people I worked for. And I'm like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And it was a conversation I had to have with my husband, because I knew I wanted to start offering editing services. And I ended up doing just as well, not as consistent, but I'm like, that income wasn't worth the emotional stress it was putting me through. And my dad had just died. And
oh my God,
I'm like, no, forget it. And we could always talk about how that was after my dad died. It was the first time I ever experienced anxiety. And that's where I started knowing, after the anxiety, I never connected the two, but that's when I started wondering if I had ADHD stuff and anxiety. And even my grief counselor and my therapist now is talking about, they're pretty cyclical. It's chicken and the egg. I'm never going to know which one started first.
Yeah.
But I do know I've been like this my entire life. So let's call ADHD first. Yeah.
Yes,
Oh my
exactly.
God.
Exactly. Well, and that's the thing too. It's like I didn't start thinking about ADHD until I started Lexapro and my anxiety was under control.
I'm on Lexapro.
Hey,
I just
yes,
started.
it's great.
Oh, it's so helpful. It's so helpful. I feel a lot more like myself. And
Exactly, like to get concerned about something and have it not flip over into a panic attack again.
Yeah,
I was like, oh
that's-
wait, everybody just lives their life like this. What?
oh my God. Oh, that's so great.
But it's like ADHD that's when the anxiety was under control and my mood was even and my brain was still acting like this. I'm like, oh, there's something else going on. It's not
All right.
anxiety is the source of everything. There
Got
is
it.
something else that is not being addressed. And that's why I
Yeah.
started looking into ADHD, because it all
Mhm.
just kind of lined up. And then my friends were getting diagnosed. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah,
Right.
that makes way more sense than anything
Right.
else I've ever heard. Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
I think the benefit for me getting the diagnosis was personal. It wasn't, I needed to prove it for work. I am my own boss. Like, it's fine.
Yeah, right.
But that's the benefit to it, is you can have it for documentation if you need special accommodations for something or whatever. But usually I think most workplaces are going to be pretty trusting about that. I hope they wouldn't like, oh, no, you don't need more time. It would have been helpful in grad school. I didn't know that at all.
Of
And
course.
I was actually, the nonfiction book I'm writing, I'm collecting, I'm in the waiting stage right now, but collecting interviews for it. One of the interviewees pointed me to ADHDonline.com. And that's how I got diagnosed. It's legit. I vetted it first. And even my physician said, oh yeah, this place is legit. We get diagnoses from them. It's instead of the in-person intake,
Oh,
it was
yes.
a 5,000 year intake form. Like, it's not conducive to ADHD. That's the
Oh
funny
my
part.
God, I know that sounds
And I'm like,
brutal.
is this one of those like psych tests where like they're actually a video and watching me like rearrange my bookshelves instead of filling this thing out? Because it's not only like sliding scale, short answers, long answers, but like there's like a whole, there's room for me to write a narrative if I wanted, like that kind of thing. And then it took a few days and they came back and told me it was actually for the older generation in my family, something I could tell them, like, this is hard for me to focus on right now.
Yeah.
ADHD. And they're like, oh, it's for real now. I'm like, it always was. Just believe me.
That is something that it's again, I feel like all the women I know who have been diagnosed they had to mask it very early and learned how to mask again because of the social expectation on girls, right? Like this like you have to
certainly
sit and be, the good. And it's so frustrating because again, these things were there all the time. Like I was talking to my friend Melissa recently.
This isn't new.
This isn't new, exactly. Or it's like, straight A's, messy desk, like that kind of like, don't ask me to clean something that's going to take absolutely forever. Unless it's this like niche thing, like all my books, which are organized by subject and then alphabetical.
I love that. That's amazing.
Right? Like if I can drill down on something and again, the dopamine and it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
Boy, I'm the most organized person in the universe, but everything else, I'm like, I don't care.
Nope.
Sure. The clean laundry, it comes out of the dryer and it goes on the floor because I cannot be asked to fold it.
That's where you can see
it.
Why would you fold it? It's just going to get worn anyway.
Exactly.
And we're in a pandemic. No one's going to care if it's wrinkly.
Right. And if anybody does, again, talking about how grief just kind of upends all of those social, your connections, to social obligations.
It rewires everything.
Everything. It's like, I don't care. If you're judging me for wrinkly clothes, I don't care about you as a person.
That's your problem. Their inconvenience is not my problem. That's one of the first things I heard from a grief counselor after, or like it actually might've been an article I read for myself, like how to manage grief with business or something like that. And this mantra stays with me, like their inconvenience is not my problem. And I read that when I was trying to quit my job, like, how can I feel better about quitting my job? Their inconvenience is not my problem. Because I was worried, who's going to take care of my student? Not my problem. Not my problem. And
exactly,
the more parents I lost, the fewer shits I gave. And
oh my God.
Right. I think actually relatives, I have similarly, 2 cousins, an aunt, and my uncle was right before my dad. So it was uncle, dad, aunt, cousin, mom, cousin. Like Jesus.
Erica, oh my God.
I know. And the thing is, you get through it, but like, and also like the more it happens, yes, it's a part of life. And I've been going to funerals and wakes since I was a kid. It's just when you live in a big Sicilian family,
Oh jeez, yeah.
you go, it's like, oh, family reunion. Oh, cool. Is it a barbecue? Nope. Uncle Harold's funeral. Like,
Yeah, of course.
okay,
yeah.
same people, same food, like just the suit.
Yeah,
and
right.
dress. Oh my God.
I know. But that's the thing. I feel like it just opens things up in a way,
Mhm.
right? That you
Yeah.
can't, and again, that perspective, like when people get upset over the most meaningless things, I'm like, really? Have you had nothing else in your life that can show you to just chill out over this nothing that you have built a mountain out of?
I have that same first thought as well. And then my higher self or future Erica says, no, they haven't had that experience. This
Yeah.
is important to them because perception is reality. And
Yes.
I remember something from a safety class that my parents and I took when I was maybe 19 to reduce like insurance. And it was like a
Yes.
valid one. Like we had to actually like learn this stuff. And he's like, the first rule, if you guys forget anything else you come in here with, you leave here with, assume innocence to avoid road rage. Basically, if I'm getting cut off by someone, I'm not like, oh, you son of a bee, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, their wife is in labor on the side of the road. They need to get to the hospital. What is that? Is it true? Probably not. It keeps me calm. I am my number one priority here. And
Yes.
my husband's working on that. Like, not making me a priority. I mean, I am. I just like the
Yes.
assume innocence thing, just because it's not helpful when we get super upset about that stuff and whatever.
That's
Also
so,
have a driving anxiety, so that definitely comes into it. And he knows that I need
Yes.
him to go a little slower and just drive with precious cargo. That's what my counselor told me to tell him. Just to have that conversation, like
yes.
just pretend I'm a baby, not in a car seat. Like a little
Oh,
carefully.
yeah.
Because stuff triggers, like, and it's not his bad driving. He's an
course.
amazing driver. It's my
Yes.
body physically reacting to getting hit by a drunk driver 14 years ago.
Oh my God.
It
Yeah.
stays with you
Yes.
physically and emotionally and mentally and all that stuff. Yeah.
That exactly. I know. I feel like we don't have in our society good conversations about trauma and what trauma actually does to a person, because it's not just a thing that happens and then you move on, or a thing that you just think
No.
about. It is something that literally lives in your body.
Your cells change.
Your cells change, your neural pathways change. There's research out there about all of this. Like,
Yes.
I'm not just pulling shit out of my ass, right?
No,
Like
you
it
are
is,
not.
it is real, and it can fundamentally affect you. And again, PTSD, complex PTSD, like that, that's always going to be there, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I was hit by this drunk driver in 2000. I think it was 9.
Okay.
And everybody's first priority was my neck and shoulders and lower back.
God.
Physical,
Yes.
physical. It never occurred to me to talk to someone about it afterwards. So for 10 years, it went whatever, like,
Of course.
call it 7 years, because after about 6 months after my dad died, I'm like, I need to talk to somebody. I think it's time. And the more people my age I was talking to about mental health, they're like, yeah, I have a therapist, I have a counselor, I have a grief counselor. I'm like, okay, it's a little more normal than my parents made it out to be.
Yes.
And so I
right.
started talking to a grief counselor, and she's like, oh no, that's PTSD. I'm like, even from the car accident, it was that time, so long ago. And she's like, did you ever deal with it? I'm like, no, I don't like thinking about it. She's like, oh, bless your heart. So that started coming up. Family stuff came up. Missing my dad came up. And then I stopped with the grief counselor. My mom died, and it felt exactly like it did when my dad died. And I went right back to a second grief counselor, who was a little more impactful than the first for me. It was just a better fit.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, this is also PTSD. I'm like, no, I already had PTSD. As if you just get it once. It's like the chicken pox. You have it once and you're done.
Exactly.
That's how I made sense of it. She's like, oh, sweetie, no. So it's like, Erica, you have PTSD for the car accident, and you have PTSD from your father's death, compounded now by the PTSD, the trauma of your mother's death.
Yeah.
And they were both quick deaths, and that both helps and hinders progress or whatever. And
Depending, I know.
my nurse friends did give me a little comfort, and they God bless them both. They're pediatric hospice nurses. Oh my God, break my heart. They
Yes.
said quick wounds heal quicker in both physical body and emotional body. Like,
Wow.
so a quick death is actually a little bit easier to get, like, because there's
Yeah.
less to mourn. Because with my mom, it was like a 3-day passing. Like
Oh,
she was,
wow.
it was just like, she
Yeah.
knew it was the end. With my dad, it was 5 weeks. And that took a lot longer to get over. And now that makes sense to me.
course.
Quick wounds heal quicker.
Oh my God,
And what circling back to the grief counseling and trauma therapy, like, I didn't know this was PTSD. I thought it was traumatic stress, but I'm like, I'm not a Vietnam War veteran. I'm not, but, and that's probably primarily where the diagnoses started being
Right.
recognized as valid. And then finally, last December, my familiar Henry, my dog, he was getting up there, slowing down, losing balance. And then it was time to go. And I was beside myself. And I'm like, why does it feel this bad? I'm not sad about saying goodbye to him. It's unprecedented. I've never had to say goodbye to this amazing dog before.
Yeah.
But I was a wreck and terrified. And I figured out I was afraid of the upcoming grief. And I talked to someone about that. And
Yeah.
she's like, PTSD from your parents' stuff. Like, that's what she didn't just tell me, because after talking to me about it, it wasn't about the dog. It was unresolved stuff with my parents' deaths.
Oh my
And
God, of course.
yeah, and that's where the conversation started about anxiety. And actually, I'm very lucky, knock on wood, I haven't had to worry about depression. I feel very, very
Great.
fortunate with that.
Yes.
Yeah. Just the anxiety is making my brain scattered, and the ADHD is making my anxiety worse. Like, so it's like cyclical. And that's when she's like, have you ever thought about, and like my grief counselor was very hesitant about this. She's like, have you ever thought about medication? I'm like, yes, but I don't know how to do that. She's like, oh, you just talk to your physician. I'm like, okay. And after the session, I was in the parking lot, and I think with mental health stuff, my physician prioritizes immediacy. So they gave me an appointment the following morning, and I started Lexapro that afternoon. And like, with a quarter pill, half pill, one pill, and now 20 milligrams. And it's like the sweet spot. It's perfect.
Oh my God, exactly.
And it's just stuff, it didn't fix me. I still have a lot of underlying issues from childhood that I didn't know were issues. Like,
boy, I know.
Oh God. But it takes me up to a normal level again.
That's
like, so I can at least face it.
That exactly, because that's the thing. It's like, again, I've been like, I have had the same therapist off and on for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it's only now like I've been on an off period. I'm like, I probably need to talk to Tova again, because there are certain things that have come up about my relationship with my mother that
Mm-hmm.
I like only now realize the depth of, and how it has affected me and affected interpersonal relationships.
Yeah.
And, when I was younger, I thought I just had the quirky mom. I'm like, oh no, it was really, really, really bad. Like,
right.
So unbelievably bad. And it was never addressed, and I didn't think about it. And now it's like this awareness, of just like, oh no, everybody was severely mentally ill and nobody was taking care of themselves.
Oh my God.
So
I'm
again,
sorry.
that like trauma from childhood of just being around people who were chaotic with each other, let alone like whatever weirdness they were saying to me, but like they were just, it was like a like Lord of the Flies, basically. It's like just watching adults like go after each other and being kid, like, this isn't right. Yeah.
Oh my
God. You're just like, I don't have words for this, but I don't feel good.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. Similarly, I recently put up walls for the first time in my 41 years with a very toxic relative. And because their behavior, it turns out, is emotional abuse. I just thought they were the quirky relative. Oh my God. No, I'm not supposed to be used as collateral when I'm 8 years old because they didn't want a store to close early because she had to pick something up. Like Yeah. Okay. There's a whole other issue that, well, it's not, it's just emotional abuse.
It's emotional abuse. Yeah.
Fat shaming me, fat shaming my sister, fat shaming my mom behind her back. And then my mom doing, God rest my mom doing the same, like just complaining about this relative to me. And I'm the middleman, but I'm a minor. So I felt like I had to be the peacemaker, and I would also get blamed vicariously through them. So now I'm fixated with feeling guilty about stuff that has nothing to do with me. Oh, I'm sorry. Not so much since my mom died, because the honey badger has come out.
Yes. So. Great.
Oh my God. But it's like, oh, so it's not just a quirky relative, that's emotional abuse and gaslighting.
Oh my God. Erica.
Oh my God. My God.
Erica, Vanessa. Are we like the alternate reality versions of each other? Because like this is the same thing that I have been experiencing, especially with Mother's Day. Like just, and like that, again, it's so hard because you have these people in your life and they are also traumatized, right? And so part of me wants to have compassion. But I also, my moon's in Scorpio, so like, fuck all of them, right? Like, there's balance.
Oh my God.
Aquarius wants to love and cherish everybody, and the Scorpio moon is like,
are you Aquarius?
Burn them to the ground. Yes.
I'm Aquarius. February 18.
Oh my God, February 5th.
Oh my God, that's crazy. And my friend recently told me whatever my moon is. I think it's, what's a Libra.
Libra. There you go. Also, like peace, right? Like, like floating, like you just want to be like compassionate and understanding of people. But then you realize like, oh wait, my family basically just treated me like a doll. I wasn't my own person. It was just, how do I fit in for what they need whenever they need it?
Oh my God. Talk about affirmation, Vanessa. Yes.
I know. Like, I'm losing my mind a little bit from like all the connections here.
This is unreal.
It's exceptionally unreal. Again, this is, like I said, very fresh because of Mother's Day, and just this awareness of, oh yeah, again, like when you said being used as collateral, right? It's like, I was a kid. I was just a person. Like I wasn't here to fulfill all of your needs and your sorrows, or just, be placed in a position to like, oh, well, I need this done here right now. And again, all of those expectations, it's like, oh no, that's emotional abuse. No boundaries either. And just expecting like, oh, well, we're family. So you just put up with whatever I have to say and do. And you're supposed to forgive me and love me and not have anything to say in response.
Vanessa, my therapist, my PTSD therapist told me last week, 2 sessions ago, forgive me, 2 weeks ago, the phrase blood is thicker than water is toxic positivity. I have no obligation to love a relative who has emotionally abused me for 40 years. I have no obligation. They had no right to use me as the messenger. They had no right to body shame me. They had no right to food shame me. They had no right to do that to my sister, to strangers, to make employees out in public cry because they were bored and wanted attention. And oh my God.
Yes.
But I have no like I would hear my mom, she's weird, but we love her, like about this relative. And like, we have to, and weird meant horrible, toxic, vampire, emotional vampire. And I picked up on that. Like, I have to love this person. I don't love this person. I wish them well. I want them to get help because like, exactly like you just said, I know they have unresolved trauma from childhood and they need help, but they don't get the help. And it comes out on me. I was the target. I was groomed. I was, So not my problem.
Not my responsibility either.
Not my responsibility.
Yes. I didn't create this situation.
I
don't have to fix this situation. And I also don't have to accommodate this situation.
Nope.
That again, I love that. Like the expectation, because I grew up hearing that all the time. Blood is thicker than water, and your family will be there for you in ways your friends have not. And also, I don't know if you dealt with this. I had all these crazy people around me. Oh, honey, we love you more than anything, more than the whole universe. Oh, we do anything for you. We die for you. when that actually got tested, and like I, again, losing relatives, losing my boyfriend, none of them were there. None of them were there. And it's just like, oh, I knew intuitively, I knew my entire life that this was a lie. And then it was presented with me. And I'm like, again, talking about that, like, oh, I'm done. Like, I'm done with all these social expectations. I am not playing these games anymore. You need help, and you need clinical help, and I can't provide that for you. Yes.
Forgive my language, but my sister and I, after each parent died, we called it the fuck this shit club. It's just, you don't care. Not only does every relationship rewire after a trauma, like losing someone or grief, grief is a trauma.
Yes.
After grief, during grief, every relationship gets reweighed and rescaled with whether you want it to or not.
Oh yeah.
And that's when I started talking about this toxic relative in therapy. And they were like, what did they do? That is not okay. That is not okay to do to an adult, let alone a 8-year-old kid.
Oh my God. Exactly.
No.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And that,
okay.
Again, I know. I just want to like talk about Care Bears. I love this, by the way, but this is so.
Like, I could get us there. I can get us there.
You know what? We're going to go wherever this goes. I'm loving this. Every single minute of this.
Yep.
But it's that, like, again, when you're like, I ended up losing a whole bunch of friends in my like grief year and a half because there were so many people in my life that I didn't even realize I was emotionally caretaking. And then I just wasn't capable of it anymore. Like physically couldn't, also had no interest in it. And like lost many friends who were upset with me because they couldn't use me anymore. My best friend from college, who is a fucking psychologist.
Oh my God.
Was just like, well, I don't you're not. I'm like, all right, I'm done with this. I'm done with this.
You can't, you're a different person.
Yes, exactly.
When you have that grief, like,
yes,
grief is just a new personality upload. Like, it's just
basically
right.
Yes.
It rewires you. Everything. Like, I even thought about each parent differently, like, because I had space and time, and there was like an aspect of it that I wasn't responsible to them anymore. And I miss them. Of
course you do. Yes.
Like, that. And here's me like justifying it. Like, but
also that. Yes.
Gem that I learned during trauma therapy in the last month. Explaining is a trauma response. Specifically over explaining.
I'm like writing that one down.
Oh, really? Explaining is a trauma response. Because I am so wired for getting blamed for things. I'm so wired to feel guilty about things. Is this blowing your mind? Because it blew my mind.
Yeah,
I'm like,
it is. I wrote it down.
I literally went to tell my husband. And as I was telling him, I backed up to tell him how the conversation started. He's like, you're explaining what explaining is. I'm like, I love you. And it was so hilarious. But I could feel myself doing it. But there is a comfort in that. And I have conversations with my sister. She's like, you don't have to explain it to me. I'm like, I know, but I still want to. And also it helps me say it out loud, and like saying stuff out loud helps me remember what I'm saying.
There's that too.
It's like threefold.
Yes. Yes. Part of it is adaptive because with ADHD.
I didn't know.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense.
It does. And it's so much easier to not justify myself. Like, I called my chiropractor the other day. I'm like, hey, I didn't ask for permission. I'm like, can I be I'm going to be 10 minutes late. Any problems? Nope. Great. I didn't tell them it's because I overslept because I had a rough night. I didn't go into detail about why my alarm didn't go. And as a college instructor, I never cared what students' excuses were. Just give me a heads up. Just give me the professional courtesy of saying you're going to be missing class today. I don't care that your mother has explosive diarrhea. I don't want that detail.
Yes.
Like, oh my God.
Yes.
And how is that not applicable in the other direction? Why do I have to explain myself when I don't want people to explain stuff to me?
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. This is incredible. This is, it's so funny because this is one of the like ongoing issues with my mother, where she will call me up and then she will explain, like, it's like 10 minutes to get to the question she wants to ask me. And I'm like, I don't care about any of that. I don't want to hear any of that. What do you need from me right now?
Do you say that?
Moment? Yes.
Good. How does she respond to
that? Oh, not well.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Cool. Oh my God.
That could be a whole other podcast. Like talking about those issues. Yeah. Yeah, because it's like, I don't want to be wrapped up in, again, I don't need it. Tell me what you need. Tell me what plans have changed. Okay, whatever. I don't care. I don't care. Just,
Right.
yeah.
But think about yourself telling someone in something similar.
I-
You'd go to the explanation because you want them to know that you're not asking because you're an asshole. You're asking because you need it. Like,
Yes, exactly.
they're not going to think you're an asshole.
They're not going to think I'm an asshole. I mean, even like I said, where I texted my boss. I was like, "Can we talk at 1:30?" Because
Done.
I didn't, no explanation.
That's great. Good for you.
Yeah, she just went perfect. I was like, perfect, great. I don't have to think about this.
I said this in my own podcast at work, our last episode. I hear my mom saying it's one of her my favorite things that she ever said. She's like, "What are they going to do? Take away your birthday?" That's my, what is it? My motto for everything now. Like, if I need an extension with my agent, if I need, if I want Chick-fil-A for dinner instead of cooking,
Yes.
what's the worst that could happen?
Right.
My husband could say no. My boss could say, or my agent could say no. Well, they're not going to take away my birthday. Like, what are they going to do? Take away your birthday?
Yeah.
Ask your questions, guys.
Ask your question. Again, it's been so good to like work for my boss because, I kind of knew like, ask for what you want. And she goes, no, demand what you want.
Oh,
This is a whole other level I hadn't considered.
what's your day job?
I work at a PR firm. So I
Nice.
do, I'm like the office manager, but they also have me doing like media lists and media impressions and things like
cool.
that for our clients. Yeah.
Fancy.
So it's great because it's like research and also admin stuff. Again, when
Nice.
it's somebody else's stuff, I can be very organized.
So easy.
It's so easy.
Oh my God. Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah.
water break.
Oh yes. Hydrating is important.
So it's fizzy water.
Oh,
LaCroix.
I like that too. And it's a good color scheme too.
I do like it. It's the pamplemousse, the
Pamplemousse.
watermelon or grapefruit. What's pamplemousse? Grapefruit, watermelon,
Grapefruit, right?
grapefruit. I do not speak French.
I do, but never learned that word. So
Pamplemousse.
pamplemousse.
I thought it said it somewhere. Anyway, yeah.
That's fine. It's all good. It is, yeah, it's so incredible again to meet someone and also to like talk with someone that I've known on Twitter for so many years and just
Yeah.
like, oh, you get it. There's
Yeah.
no explanation. It's just like, oh, you understand me on a fundamental level.
Right.
Yeah, again, I don't have to explain. I don't have to over explain. It's just
You don't, but like
Just-
subconsciously, I was listening to you, like trying to like record in my head what you were just saying, because I'm picturing what it's like to be somebody listening to this and saying that would be helpful because there's probably somebody who doesn't have ADHD,
Oh yes.
who's listening. And to that one person, hello.
Exactly.
Everybody else probably does. They know anything about you.
I feel like I have surrounded myself with people who are on the ADHD spectrum in some
Find your
capacity.
people.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
amazing.
Yeah,
Oh my
'cause-
God.
Well, and especially too in terms of like the paranormal and the occult, because I feel like all the people who have the same sensibility I do of play, of engagement, of curiosity, of exploration is
Yeah.
different than I think that lends itself to a certain ADHD. Let's go exploring, let's chase the dopamine, let's learn new
Mhm.
things.
Oh yeah.
As opposed to people who are like, no, this is this, and this is the answer. It's like, really? That's kind of boring to me. Can I
Right.
ask some more questions?
What
Like,
else could it be? Yeah.
yeah, right. Like I've always thought it was so much more fun to go chasing ideas than to get stuck in belief, right?
Right.
And again, that's probably the Aquarius thing too, where it's like,
That's
I don't
fair.
believe anything from day to day. Like, well, I can't. The idea of following a religion or following like a strong belief system, I'm like, what's
Yeah.
that like? I am not wired for that.
Right. Oh yeah. No, that's fair.
Yeah.
Something you just said reminded me that like I really enjoy being the new kid, being the new person. The expectations are so much lighter.
Yes.
Having a new job. That's why I had so many jobs. Like as soon as I got good at something, I thought I was just bored. The dopamine was gone. Now I know that. Right?
Of course,
And
yes.
my side hustle, I had an Etsy store where I did pop culture crafts, and I got to pay for all my Christmas presents, like buying for other people with what I earned from it.
Oh, great.
And I did it for 1 year and it was great. And then it got to be like a chore. And the minute it got to be a chore, I'm like, I can't anymore. I can't, and I don't have to. So I stopped it. I closed the shop, and also Etsy was getting a little weird with their policies and everything. So
They're getting worse and worse. Yeah.
are they really? Yeah.
Yeah.
I figured.
Yeah.
So now it's the then it was editing, and
Yes.
it turns out my years as a college English writing instructor it was pretty damn directly transferable skills to editing for writers, fiction writers, nonfiction writers, not academic anymore.
Mhm.
And it's like, if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. If you can give feedback to a reluctant writer who has to write a paper in any subject, then I can give feedback to people who want the feedback. Like, it made me, I was originally hired as an unpaid intern.
Mhm.
And then I was interviewing for an unpaid internship test. They ended up hiring me as an assistant editor. You're like, you're head and shoulders above some of our editors anyway, like assistant editors.
Yeah.
So, and it was very flattering. But
of course.
I was like, wow, that's amazing. I feel special. But I had done the legwork for 10 years as a college writing instructor, because it wasn't just, it's not proofreading. I'm the worst proofreader. That's not the type of editor I am. I'm a developmental editor. I go with like developing the idea, right, getting to the conclusion, like figuring out what you want to say, what voice you want to say it in, all that stuff. It has nothing to do with proofreading. I'm not your proofreader, like not that type of editor. And then that got old. So I'm like, I really enjoy the editing. I've mastered the editing thing, and I'll have some like side hustle clients. I didn't have the attention span for full manuscripts. I wonder why. Undiagnosed ADHD, inattentive.
Yes.
So I would only do like short little samples and blips and whatever. And as soon as the projects got to get longer, I couldn't keep up with it, and it ended up ending, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And then when it got to what next, I'm like, well, I really enjoy the editing part. I'm fascinated by what goes on behind the scenes of anything. So I'm like, agenting. Would I be good at it as an agent? And I ended up not loving it. It wasn't my bag. It wasn't, I need an agent. I wouldn't be a good one. I don't haggle at garage sales. I'm like, just how much do you want for this one-legged Barbie? Like, I'll take it. Like, just tell me what you want. I don't haggle. Like, I'm not good at advocating for myself in a legal sense. I am when I'm getting harassed by a guy telling me to smile, but that's not what agenting is like. So, currently it's tarot. It's reading, like I have the side hustle of reading tarot and oracle cards for anybody who wants it. But my decks are specifically the decks that spark joy. And those just happen to be the pop culture decks, the kitschy decks. Like I have Stacey Graham, she's a literary agent. She wrote the Zombie Tarot through Quirk Books. Oh my God. It's an amazing deck. Yes. And I'm learning a lot about the difference between tarot and oracle. And I recently picked up like a kawaii tarot deck, and I was obsessed with the images. It was so freaking cute. I'm like, why is this so cute? And I learned kawaii is the Japanese culture of cuteness. And I'm like, I'm here for it. And I just did a reading for it yesterday. It was just the sweetest thing. That's so good. Oh my God. And it feels so good to do it. And I call myself the Dork Witch. I am using my dorkiness as my selling point, because I get to geek out. People pay me to geek out over the cards that I pull because of how aesthetically intriguing they are, how beautiful they are. The body chills I get are the chills on the left side of the body, the right side of the body. What does that mean for me? I don't know yet. And I'm still figuring it out. Sometimes it's waist down, back of my legs only. And that's a particular thing. Like I'm trying to map that onto the meridians of the body. And I know there's got to be some meaning, and I don't know what it is, but I was only doing PDF readings at first, where I would conduct the reading by myself, then type it up in a PDF with images of the cards for the client. Yes. And I'm still doing that. That's still a service option, but I do the readings out loud to myself. So I've started recording them. So people now have an option to purchase the video of me doing it live. And I have a conversation with the person, whether they're going to see it or not, or myself. Yes. And I'm like, oh God, it's just like this. And just the reading I did today, like I had to give them a disclaimer. I'm like, look, I don't claim to be a medium, but there's a male
Yes.
voice coming through and he wants me to say X, Y, and Z. And that was powerful. And it's not the first time it's happened. Even when I've done like a free 1-card draws on Twitter,
Yes.
like this comes through, and I will basically, I just follow the joy. It's that dopamine thing. And this is one of the best side hustles I have ever done. It's not only, I like at first I'm like, I feel weird charging people for tarot. I now feel weird not charging people for tarot readings because it drains me. It takes so much of my physical, mental, emotional power.
Yes.
And I'm very proud of that. That makes me feel like it's authentic. And here's me explaining it to you, like justifying why I charge people for readings. And it's just, there's not a Care Bear deck yet. And I want one. So I'm making one of some cards I found off of eBay. Recently rediscovered eBay and am a little obsessed.
Oh, it can be very, very dangerous.
Holy shnikes. Oh my God. Vanessa, I'm going to have an unboxing. It actually might be, it's either getting today or tomorrow.
Oh,
and so there's some exciting unboxing things I'm coming up, like eBay finds reveals I'm going to be doing on the stream soon. And it's just, I give myself permission to be as dorky about it as I want. And I got bullied for being a dork. I got bullied for looking like a boy as a kid. I had a short haircut, didn't develop too quickly. And it's just, I got bullied for being awkward and not having the right clothes and only wearing hand-me-downs. And you know what? All that stuff is really cool now. It's cool to go thrifting. It's cool to wear hand-me-downs and vintage. It's not hand-me-downs, it's vintage. Like, where were you in 1991, man?
Thank you. Exactly.
Oh my God. And I'm leaning over looking at my deck. I've got Friends tarot deck. It's not licensed, but in Australia they can get away with it. So I got, my sister has a Golden Girls tarot deck. Like,
I have that one too. Yes.
Oh, it's adorable. It's so stinking good.
Yes.
Oh, so you read tarot too?
Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And it's so funny you talk about charging, because for a long time I didn't feel comfortable charging. And then I realized, like, this is work. I am physically drained after this, exhausted after this, usually need like time to recover after a reading. And again, that's how I know I'm actually pouring, like I'm downloading something and I'm putting it on a page. Yes.
Downloading is such a good way to put it.
Yeah. And so that now I charge, and I've been doing professional readings for the past few years. Yeah. And part of it too is I also feel like a sense of apprenticeship. So when I started reading for other people, I'm like, I'm not going to charge for this because I want to see, gauged. Am I good at this? Am I getting good intuitive information? Am I able to communicate? And then after a couple of years of that, I was like, no, this, I want to, this is work, right? Like I want to get paid for work.
Right. So, mine was kind of the converse of that, where I was just reading and one of my non-relatives' reactions to it was like, oh my God, can I recommend you to someone else? And I'm like, sure. And like, she's like, this is more powerful than some of the stuff I've had to pay for. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, well, that's got to be true, because I know I'm not making it up. I know like on my website, it says there's an asterisk and it says something like, no, I don't look you up ahead of time because I'm lazy and that sounds like extra work.
I saw that. Yes.
It's
I love
legitimately true. Like, I've never written anything more honest than that in my life, because like, and if I'm like, if I'm reading for you, I will say, I'll like give myself a disclaimer out loud and you'll hear it in the video. Like, I know you, I'm going to put my opinions and emotions about you aside, but I'm not going to ignore the fact that I know you're a tarot reader, that I know you're a podcaster, because that'll help me clarify and zoom in on this blind reading. I wish there was a better word for that, but I don't know. It just because I don't need questions yet, because the cards are so loud. And
I love that we're having this conversation. I prefer, it's a little different now because again, with the pandemic, right? I used to love just handing people the deck of cards. They shuffle it. When it feels done to them, they hand it, and then I do the reading. And I wouldn't even ask the question. I preferred at the time, like, not hearing what the question was, because I wanted to see what the cards had to say to me. And usually they were very loud.
Right.
And I would just say, I'm like, let me get a handle on the cards first. And I said, if you want to tell me what your question was mid-reading, that's fine. And again, probably 90% of the time, somebody would jump in and say, okay, this is the question I asked, and this is how everything that you've said already ties
Oh,
into
that's
this
nice.
question.
Oh,
Yes.
that's a really cool way to do it.
Yeah. Now, because of the internet, I just prefer like, yeah, just tell me your question. It's fine. And I'll
Oh,
do a
that's
reading
cool.
for you based off of that. And I trust
Yeah.
my intuition now too, that like before I was like, you tell me when the cards are done. Now I know like, no, I can ask the question. The cards know I'm asking for somebody else. They will tell me when it's done. Right. So
yeah. 95% of my readings are remote. So I shuffle like this, and it's always jumpers. It's just jumpers. And there's a difference between jumpers and me dropping the cards.
It's literally that.
You can feel the difference.
You absolutely can.
It's so uncanny. And then and like sometimes I feel like I'm making it up. That's my lizard brain trying to get me to rationalize what's actually happening. And sometimes I feel like I'm forcing it, and I'll restart, and that's fine.
Yes.
There's no wrong way to do it. It's just I recently realized it is not okay for someone to read for me without my permission. And this person who I didn't know saw me one of my live streams, and they were like, "Oh, I just pulled this Celtic cross spread for you." And I'm like, "What?" I ignored.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not okay. That's not like, I didn't even know the kind of I thought it was like an unspoken thing. Like, you don't read for someone without permission. No, you don't. Like, it's like eavesdropping. It's like,
yes.
I don't know. It didn't feel right. And I don't do that. And so now I actually figured out on my Weebly site, how to add gift cards. So now people can buy a gift card for someone else so they can, if they ever want it.
Of course. Yes.
So much easier.
Yes, exactly.
And violating my code of ethics.
That's too much. Yeah. Like I've been on live streams with people who like they'll say, "Oh, well, I'm pulling cards," or "We're doing like an Estes method," or something like that. If you want to pull a card too, that's fine. That is very different than dropping into somebody's stream and doing a full Celtic cross for someone.
Oh my God.
No.
You don't do that.
No, that is bad. I don't like it.
I don't like it either. And it's just, that was new. And now that's on my website that do not, any purchases that are made for someone else, like without their written permission, you're going to get refunded and encouraged to get a gift card.
Yes.
So I'm just going to have to do that. If people don't read that, I'll make it more prominent on the website somehow. So
of course. Yeah. Amazing.
Thanks so much for listening and or watching, depending on where you found the podcast. You can find Erica at Erica the Davis on Twitter. You can also find her at dorkwitch.xyz, get a tarot reading. You can find Personal Pans at Personal Pans on Twitter and Instagram. And you can find me at Kali Butterfly. That's Kali Butterfly. Like I said, this is a delightful episode and so much fun to revisit after a pretty grim few weeks in the news. So I hope it has inspired you to have a playful and curious day.